What if I told you that the difference between staying average forever and becoming genuinely wealthy has nothing to do with how much money you make? Right now, somewhere out there, a person making $40,000 a year is on track to retire a millionaire. And at the exact same time, a person making six figures is going to be broke at 65. Same country, same economy, same opportunities, completely different futures. So which one are you? And more importantly, which one are you going to become starting today? This is Ron, and on this channel, we break down exactly how normal people, with normal jobs and normal paychecks, quietly build extraordinary wealth. No hype, no luck, just a system. Before we go further, hit that like button right now. And if you're serious about changing your financial future, subscribe, because this channel is going to become your blueprint. Let's get into it. Let's start with a simple truth. Average is not a size of paycheck. Average is a set of habits. And wealthy is not a size of paycheck either. Wealthy is also a set of habits. That's it. That's the entire secret hiding in plain sight. Let me show you what I mean by walking you through two lives. Two people. Same starting point. Same salary. Completely different endings. Meet person A. We'll call them Average Alex. And person B, we'll call them Wealthy Wendy. Both of them start their first real job at 25 years old, making $50,000 a year. Both of them get small raises over time. Neither of them wins the lottery. Neither of them gets a surprise inheritance. This is not a story about luck. This is a story about decisions. Here's Alex's 20s. Alex gets that first paycheck and feels rich for the first time in their life. New apartment, a little nicer than needed. A new car, financed over 6 years because the payment felt manageable. Dinners out 3 or 4 times a week because you only live once. Credit cards for the gap between paychecks. No real budget, just a vague feeling of, I'll figure it out later. By age 30, Alex has a car payment, credit card debt, and maybe $2,000 in savings, if that. Now here's Wendy's 20s. Same salary, same job market. Wendy gets that same first paycheck. And the very first thing Wendy does, before spending a single dollar on lifestyle, is decide on a percentage to save and invest, not a leftover amount. A percentage taken off the top automatically before Wendy ever sees it. We're talking 15 to 20% straight into a retirement account and an investment account, automated, so there's no willpower involved. Wendy drives a modest, reliable used car, paid off in 2 years. Wendy lives in a smaller apartment than she could technically afford, not because Wendy is depriving herself, but because Wendy understands one rule that changes everything. Lifestyle should lag behind income, not match it. By age 30, Wendy has built an emergency fund, has zero consumer debt, and already has around $30,000 invested and compounding. Now here's where it gets interesting, because this is the part almost nobody talks about. The gap between Alex and Wendy at age 30 doesn't look massive. $30,000 isn't a fortune. If you looked at their bank accounts side by side, you might think, so what? Wendy just has a little more saved. Big deal. But you're not looking at the right number. You're looking at the seed, not the tree. This is where we need to talk about the single most powerful force in personal finance: compound growth. Albert Einstein is often credited with calling compound interest the eighth wonder of the world, and whether or not he actually said it, the idea is exactly right. Money that is invested doesn't just sit there, it grows, and then the growth grows. Your money starts making money, and then that new money starts making money too. Let's put real numbers on this, because vague concepts don't change behavior, numbers do. Assume Wendy keeps investing that same 15 to 20% every single year, and assume a long-term average stock market return of around 7% after inflation, which is a historically reasonable conservative assumption for a diversified index fund portfolio over several decades. By the time Wendy is 40, her invested $30,000, plus everything she continued adding, has grown into roughly $150,000. By 50, we're talking somewhere around $400,000. By 60, over $800,000. And if Wendy works until 65, that number can realistically cross the $1 million mark, sometimes well beyond it, depending on raises and contribution increases along the way. Meanwhile, Alex, who never really got ahead of the paycheck-to-paycheck cycle, spends the next 30 years catching up. A late start on saving doesn't just cost you the money you didn't save, it costs you every single year of growth that money would have earned. That is the real, invisible price of waiting. This is why the wealthy don't actually need a huge salary. They need time in the market, consistency, and a system. Time is the multiplier. Salary is just the input. Now let's talk about why average Alex's path is so common, because I want you to recognize it, not judge it. Nobody wakes up one day and decides, I want to struggle financially forever. It happens gradually, through invisible decisions. It happens because of something called lifestyle inflation. Every time income goes up, spending quietly creeps up to match it. A raise arrives, and almost immediately there's a nicer car, a bigger apartment, more takeout, a few more subscriptions. The paycheck grows, but the gap between income and expenses stays exactly the same, or gets smaller. This is the single biggest wealth killer for people earning completely normal, average salaries. It's not that they don't make enough, it's that their spending grows exactly as fast as their income does. The wealthy path flips this one rule on its head. When income goes up, the wealthy increase their savings rate before they increase their lifestyle. Get a raise? A meaningful chunk of it goes straight into investments, automatically, before it ever touches the checking account. The lifestyle upgrade still happens, just smaller and slower than the income growth. Over 10, 20, 30 years, that gap between income and spending becomes the engine of everything. Let's talk about what average salary wealth building actually looks like in practice, step by step, because I don't want this to stay abstract. Step 1. Automate before you can spend it. This is the single highest leverage habit in personal finance. As soon as your paycheck lands, a percentage is automatically routed into savings and investments before you ever see the remaining balance. This removes willpower from the equation entirely. You are not relying on discipline every single payday. You're relying on a system you set up once. Step 2. Build the emergency fund first, but don't let it become an excuse to delay investing forever. 3 to 6 months of essential expenses sitting in a simple high-yield savings account. This fund exists so that a car repair, a medical bill, or a job loss doesn't force you to sell investments at the worst possible time or go into debt. Once it's built, you move fully into investing mode. Step 3. Use tax-advantaged retirement accounts fully, or as fully as your budget allows. Employer-sponsored retirement plans, especially ones with any kind of employer match, are one of the closest things to free money that exists in personal finance. If your employer matches contributions and you're not contributing enough to get the full match, you are quite literally leaving guaranteed instant returns on the table. Step 4. Keep investing simple. Low-cost, broadly diversified index funds. You don't need to pick individual stocks. You don't need to time the market. You don't need to watch financial news every day. Historically, a simple, low-cost, diversified approach has outperformed the majority of actively managed funds over long time periods, largely because of lower fees and the removal of emotional decision-making. Step 5. Increase your savings rate with every raise, every bonus, every windfall. This is the lifestyle inflation rule in action. Before you upgrade anything, increase the automated percentage going into investments first. Step 6. Avoid high-interest consumer debt like it's on fire. Credit card debt, in particular, often carries interest rates far higher than what your investments are likely to earn. Paying down high-interest debt is, in a very real sense, a guaranteed return because you're eliminating a guaranteed cost. Step 7. Think in decades, not months. Wealth building on an average salary is not a sprint. Nobody becomes wealthy in a single dramatic year. It happens in the boring, quiet, unremarkable middle years, where the same disciplined behavior repeats itself, month after month, year after year, largely unnoticed, until suddenly the numbers become impossible to ignore. Now let's fast forward and actually picture the two lives, side by side, at retirement age, because this is the part that should give you chills. Average Alex, at 65, is still working, or forced into a much smaller retirement than expected. Social Security alone doesn't cover the lifestyle Alex has grown used to. Retirement means downsizing dramatically, worrying about medical costs, and depending on family or minimal government support. Decades of a completely normal salary produced a financially fragile ending, not because Alex was lazy or foolish, but because Alex never built a system and the years slipped by on autopilot. Wealthy Wendy, at 65, retires with a portfolio worth well over $1 million, sometimes several million, depending on career length and contribution growth. That money continues generating returns even in retirement. Wendy has choices: travel, time with family, the option to work only if she wants to, not because she has to. Same starting salary as Alex, same economy, same job market. The only difference across 40 years was a system, applied consistently, protected from lifestyle inflation, and left alone to compound. This is the entire point of this video. Wealth is not about a magic income number. It's not about needing to earn six figures. It's about what percentage of your income you keep, how early you start keeping it, and whether you let compound growth do the heavy lifting for decades instead of trying to force results in a few dramatic years. If you're in your 20s or 30s right now, this is genuinely the best possible moment to start, because time is the one resource you can never buy back. If you're in your 40s or 50s, don't let this discourage you either, because the second best time to start is always today. The math still works. It just requires starting now instead of waiting another year. So let's bring this all the way back to where we started. Average and wealthy were never about the paycheck. They were about the system running quietly in the background of someone's life. Automate your savings. Protect yourself from lifestyle inflation. Use simple, low-cost investing. Avoid high-interest debt. And give it time, because time is where the real wealth is actually built. You don't need a bigger salary to change your future. You need a better system, starting with your very next paycheck. If this video gave you a new way of thinking about your money, hit that like button. Subscribe if you haven't already. And let me know in the comments, are you an average Alex right now? Or are you ready to start becoming a wealthy Wendy? This is Ron, and I'll see you in the next one.